Welcome to my World History Notes, where I read from the book that I wrote to teach homeschoolers world history. A Bible believer looks at world history. Um, you can find it on lulu.com, amazon.com, or the Bible Baptist Bookstore, or just follow me here. Now we're going to continue our discussion. We're in the first few centuries of the AD after Christ, and things to do with Christianity and things to do with Rome before we proceed to other areas. So let me begin here. There are already signs of paganism creeping into Christianity, with many heresies creeping up where pagan influences are combined with Christian worship. Clement of Rome began mistakenly applying the Old Testament Levitical priesthood practices to the Christian church. Ignatius said to obey the pastor was to obey the Lord himself, thereby elevating the pastor or bishop, as they were called, to a Nicolaitan, a separate priesthood, literally victory over the laity status. And I'll talk about that later. Tertullian called the pastor the supreme priest. These false teachings, which go against the clear instructions of the apostles, were inserted because of the belief that since God sent Jesus and Jesus so chose the apostles, that anyone they worked with was equally as authoritative, which, once the Bible was complete, put them in direct conflict with the final authority of the scriptures. This is amazing, even that Tertullian even admitted that the original letters of the apostles were still being read in the churches to which they were sent in his day around 200. Now, Emperor Trajan annexed Arabia in 107, and from 113 to 117, he fought a war with Parthia, an empire east of the Roman provinces in Palestine that caused much trouble for Rome. Parthia was the most enduring empire of the ancient Near East and the archenemy of Rome, checking Rome's eastern advance toward Alexander's conquest of present day Afghanistan and India. Nomads called Parni settled and rose to power in present day Iran in the late 3rd century BC and rose to great power under their king, Mithridates the Great, from 171 BC to 138 BC, and eventually ruled most of Western South Asia, including the area of present-day Iran, Iraq, Eastern Turkey, Armenia, and many republics south of Russia. They were fierce warriors known for the Parthian shot, which is the action of turning completely around on one's horse to fire a bow shot behind. Their own writing is lost, and we only know them from the writings of the Romans, the Greeks, and the Jews. The empire was defeated in the 200 ADs by the Persian Sassanid dynasty. There's also some information written by the Chinese about them, as they were at the end of what was known as the quote, the Silk Road, which was a long trading route that went from the Roman Empire to the Chinese Empire. Some sources even indicate that Roman soldiers at some point did fight skirmishes with Chinese. In the history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, Edward Gibbon described Trajan's rapid advance into Parthian regions. The quote, degenerate Parthians fled before his arms. He descended the river Tigris in triumph from the mountains of Armenia to the Persian Gulf. Aboard his flagship, Trajan celebrated a mission accomplished. According to Gibbon, again, quote, the rich countries of Armenia, Mesopotamia, and Assyria were reduced into the state of provinces. Okay, to put a local face on the occupation, a Parthian favored by Rome was installed in power in Ctesiphon. Trajan was the first, quote, the first as he was the last of the Roman generals to sail the Persian Gulf. Overconfident, Trajan was shocked to visit Babylon and find the ancient city in revolt. With the aid of former officers of the Parthian Empire, insurgents attacked Roman troops throughout the country. The insurrectionists included the local Jewish population, which rose with Jews throughout the Eastern Roman Empire in a bloody uprising. Trajan had put down the revolt but died in 117 before order was restored. Hadrian, Trajan's lieutenant and successor, immediately withdrew Rome's peerless yet overstretched legions. Without the protection of the Western army, Rome's man in Ctesiphon was pushed out and the old order returned. Trajan's invasion was a costly failure. The only thing man learns from history is that man never learns from history. There had been a war with Parthia previously under Nero's reign that ended successfully between 56 and 63 AD. But before that, in 53 BC, the great Roman general Crassus had been beaten, beheaded, and had molten gold poured into his mouth by the Parthian general Serena at the disastrous Battle of Carrhae. Hadrian ruled Rome from 117 to 138. He made peace with Parthia and spent most of his reign traveling throughout his empire. On a visit to Britain in 122, the province where the famous Briton Celt queen Boadicea, had caused so much trouble in her revolt of 61 AD, he oversaw the construction of the wall that bears his name. Hadrian also brutally suppressed the last great Jewish revolt under Bar Kokhba between 132 and 135. This finally dispersed the Jewish people around the world for nearly 2,000 years. After Hadrian reign, Antoninus Pius had a relatively quiet reign from 138 to 161, outside of a few minor revolts, excuse me, in Britain, Mauritania, and Egypt. There were at least 10 great persecutions of Christians during the first 300 years of the era referred to on calendars as AD or Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. Eusebius, a Christian historian and sycophant of the Emperor Constantine, wrote extensively about them. Most historians agree that they could be listed by the emperor who instituted the persecutions. They were listed by Eusebius as Nero's persecution, excuse me. He was Roman emperor from 54 to 68. Started up in AD 64. In this persecution, the Apostle Paul might have been killed and the Apostle Peter crucified in Rome. This first persecution ceased under Vespasian, who reigned from 69 to 79. Domitian, Roman emperor, 81 to 96. John the Apostle and Evangelist was exiled to Patmos during this persecution. After the death of Domitian, John was released and came to Ephesus in AD 97, when he wrote his gospel, and where he wrote his gospel and where he lived until the time of Trajan. We'll discuss more about early Christian persecutions that were prominent. We'll start with Trajan's next time, and we'll go on to discuss a few important points about persecution before we finish up with that topic for this section. All right. Thank you for watching. I hope you don't have to agree with my conclusions, but you should at least, excuse me, you should at least know about the things that I discuss. People, places, and events have an idea or opinions about them. Thank you.